We now want to insert some sort of player into our game, or a way that we can move around this scene and interact with these cubes. So Unity has a great array of prefabs built into the software that we can utilize. So in order to get those into this project, we go up to Assets, choose Import Package, and this one we're going to come down to is Vehicles. Okay, so what it actually does is say which part of the vehicle package would we like to import. And if I minimize all of these, you will be able to see that we have this cross-platform folder. This is important because when we're exporting our game, we want to be able to export it to a lot of different platforms. So whether you want to export it to iPhone, or whether you want to export it to Windows, or whether you want to install it for like a PlayStation, we need to have that cross-platform input selected. Under Vehicles, you can see that we have an aircraft folder and a car folder. For this particular activity, I only want the car, so I could untick the aircraft. This way I'm going to have less items sitting in my project window. The less items I can have sitting in my project window when I export my project, the smaller the project will be. So if we know we're not going to be using something, it's probably a good idea to not import it. But for this particular example, we'll import both so we can have a bit of a play with both prefabs. With everything selected, we press Import. Okay, so we can see now in our Assets folder of our project window, we now have this folder called Standard Assets. When I double click on that, you can see those folders that have been brought in by Unity. If I double click on Vehicles, I have my aircraft or my car. I'm going to click on my car, and we can see here that we have audio, we've got materials, models, prefabs, scripts, shaders and textures. So everything we need for those game objects to work is already imported, was already written and imported for us. So I can just click here on prefabs. So I'm going to click this prefab called car, and I'm going to drag it out into my scene window. When I bring it into the scene window, you can see that it looks slightly different to the game window down the bottom. So where my camera is positioned is not the same place as the scene window at the top, but the bottom window is the view that the player will actually see. So I want to kind of place my car in front of my camera like so. Okay, I can then move my scene around if I want to look at it from different angles, but I know that my car will always be directly in front of the camera when the player plays the game. If, for example, this game window doesn't look the way you want it to look, you can actually set up your scene to have the view that you would like the player to be able to see. For example, like this. I can then click on my camera and say Game Object, Align with View. You can see now that my camera has moved into the same position as I placed it at the front. Now there is a slightly different field of view between the two of them, so I can come over here to my inspector and change that field of view if I would like, so to narrow it or to widen that field of view if I would like to. But most of the time we just leave it with the default because we would like our player to kind of see as much of the scene really as possible, but still be able to see themselves. So that's basically it. Now that I've imported my car, it's already got the script on it, which is going to make it drive around. It's got the audio listeners on it, which is going to make it make noise. It has like a skid animation, so when we do particular things, it's going to leave like little skid marks on the ground. So prefabs are essentially prefabricated. They're already made for you. You just need to drag and drop them into the scene. So I'm going to maximize this. If I press play now, you see my cube explode throughout the scene. We can hear already my car rumbling. And when I press forward on my keypad, left and right, my car drives around the scene. And you can see that it's leaving skid marks and so forth behind as I skid around. And if I hit one of these cubes, Easier said than done. If I hit one of the cubes, I would interact with it. All right. So the problem we have here at the moment is obviously my car is driving off the scene, and I can't actually see it kind of working. So what we can actually do is child the camera to the car. So basically wherever the car goes, the camera will follow. And we do that by just dragging our main camera and dropping it onto our car game object in the hierarchy. So now my camera is inside this drop-down list of the car. So that now when I press play, my camera is actually moving with my car. And interacts with the game objects. The problem now is obviously we have this break in the reality of the game, as I can drive off the side of the plane and my car will just fall infinitely to the ground because there's nothing to catch it and there's nothing to stop the game. So now what I can do is zoom right out of my scene, and arrange it. I might create a new 3D object. I'm going to call it wall 1, and I'm going to set its X, Y, and Z to 0. And I can see here it is now right in the center of my scene. Using my transform tool, I'm going to transform its position. Then using my, just going to drag it out. To make it as wide as my scene. And I can position it right on the edge of my world. If I play this now, okay, so now that I'm playing it, I can drive towards my wall, which should be hopefully in front of me. And you can see that if my car hits it, it can't go any further. It stops my car. So unlike the red cubes that have physics on them and move when my car interacts with them, this one does not have physics on it. So it's just going to stay there and it's not going to interact. It's not going to move when the collider of my car hits it. The other thing we can do to customize our game is obviously to add some materials to the car. So in our vehicles folder, in the cars folder, you can see we actually have this prefab folder, or this pre-made folder called materials. And we can see that this is where it's actually pulling those smoke effects from, and also where it's pulling the lighting effects from. There's a couple of other ones in here where we have car body grey, car body white, and we also have car wheels grey and car wheels white. So if I was to take this, I'm just going to bring this to a way that I can see it from the side. If I bring this sky car body material out and drop it onto my car, you can see that it now turns my car white. And if I take this wheel and I drop it onto the wheels. The other thing that I could do obviously is to come back out here to my materials folder where I have my cube material and my floor material, and add a new material, and call it car material, and I can then choose the colour that I would like my car to be. And I can add some effects on it, so I can up the metallic effect of that, and then drag that out and put it onto my car. I could also create a wheels, material, which is black. I don't want that to be metallic at all, and I don't really want it to be shiny at all either, so I can bring that down and make it quite a sort of matte colour. Bring that out and drop it onto my tyres. Oops. And I've also got these like wheel hubs as well, so I might put black on those also. I think I have one on the other side. Put the blue material on there also. Okay, I may want to put material on my windows. I could make a new material, obviously. I'm just going to use the same matte material. Black, sorry. So now I have a car that is looking pretty realistic. When I press play, I have objects in my scene I can interact with, and I obviously have all the built-in animations and so forth that I can play with as well. So we have the beginnings of a fairly decent game.